it's the MoCo Millennial. Yeah, I'm back. I know it's kind of been a while since I've had more interviews up, but don't worry, they're coming back. Actually, later this week, I'm going to have Jay Espy. She's running for delegate, and she's going to be talking about mental health policy. Also, coming up, we're going to be discussing the Montgomery County budget shortfall and how to address that, some environmental issues, more with the county council, and affordable housing. I'm going to have some new faces on, some really good friends coming back. It's going to be a lot of fun, but right now I have another personal commentary that I feel like releasing. So hold on. I'm not going to ever run for anything. I'm okay with going kind of no holds barred on this, and if you disagree, which I imagine several of you will, feel free to comment below, or I can even have you on the show and we can talk about it together. As I say, I like to speak with people who I disagree with sometimes and have some kind of constructive debate or whatever. But today I actually want to address something kind of controversial. It's the Me Too movement and the Aziz Ansari case. Before that, I wanted to mention that I did attend the Women's March with my mother this weekend. It was a nice sort of mother-daughter event. And there was a lot of great energy. So many really cool creative signs were made this weekend. I actually didn't get around to making one of my own. And people were very kind and courteous, just kind of like last year. Funny how these events surrounding women, everyone's so polite. They're all please and thank you, excuse me, can I help you, that kind of thing. After the event, my mother and I did address our own perspectives on feminism. And we both more or less identify as feminists, just we differ on some particular issues. Her take is more, I'll put it this way, she's more inclined to find particular comments and jokes to be sexist. She's a lot more politically correct than I am. She's more focused on not being objectified, whereas I'm kind of more lax about that. I focus more on agency and equality, and my perspective is if you're confident enough in your own professional abilities and intellect, then if someone wants to comment on your appearance, then you can graciously accept the compliment and realize that you don't need to be validated in other aspects because you already know that. You know you're intelligent, so if someone wants to compliment you on your appearance, then that's just an added bonus. That's my perspective on something, but I guess my mother, she comes from an era where women, I guess, were exclusively considered for their appearances, and maybe that applies in some situations today, but I think women should focus on having their own agency and proving themselves as professionally viable and intelligent, and looks are up to the way you look, the way you dress, that's your own choice. You can dress traditionally feminine, or you can show your athletic side. Certainly I'm split down the middle, or like both at the same time. One minute I'll be running out and in the mud and falling into Sligo Creek and crawling out of it looking like a swamp monster, and 10 minutes later I'll be in a dress and heels. So yeah, and I think that's great. There's so much diversity in the way people want to express themselves, and I think that's really something to be celebrated. There's no one particular look or way to act. You have the agency. You can do what you want. So that aside, we did agree on the Aziz Ansari case in that he was innocent. This example does not constitute sexual assault. So after a rather lengthy and rather intense internet discussion about this case and about where one draws the line as to what's actually assault and what's simply awkwardness, I've made my perspective really clear, and that is that we must not hijack the movement, which is supposed to be giving a voice to those who otherwise were afraid to speak up. We cannot cry wolf and hijack it into some kind of identity politics of victimhood. I wrote that in less than 30 years of existence, so one of the most important things I've learned in dating and sex and this whole jungle out there is that, people are going to make mistakes. People are going to say things that are offensive. So long as the words don't turn into actions, or if what you're saying or doing, if someone says no and you persist repeatedly, then you should be able to say, you should be able to apologize and move on. I think the line is drawn when someone says no clearly, and the person persists, then you're already into assault or harassment territory. If not, if it's just a lewd comment, an unwelcome gesture or something, then okay. Some people have a more relaxed sense of humor, and some people are more receptive to certain kind of offenses, and others are not. And you live and you learn and you forgive and you move on. I know some people will disagree with that, and some people might come from a different background and have had more issues with that than I have, and I understand that this is a fairly limited perspective of mine. But I'm afraid that this movement, which is really important to have, is being hijacked by some of those who are really, frankly, looking for things to be outraged at. And it's not really doing any favors for women who do actually need this. And it's also just providing fodder for the kind of alt-right, MRA, pickup artist, MGTOW, or whatever they want to call themselves. It's just providing more fodder for them. Is rather counterproductive. As applies to my own perspective, and this I certainly have plenty of experience with. Awkward dates. Awkward dates are a part of life. What makes you grow. I honestly think they're a positive thing, because then when you find someone you really like or have an actually really good date, then you appreciate it more. And I think just as the Me Too movement should empower women to be able to speak up amid pressure that they may feel to do something they don't want to do. If you speak up, first of all, it gets rid of the ambiguity as to whether or not it was assault. If you say no, and the man or woman, or it can happen to gay men and women as well, if the other person persists against something that you already said no to, then yes, that is assault, and then you take legal action. If not, then this incident should show you that your partner is not going to read your mind, and you can't spin something that was awkward that you just didn't like into allegations against someone that could destroy their career. Likewise, the other person in the partnership needs to learn how to accept rejection. I mean, I've been rejected. I've rejected people. It's awkward for about 5 minutes or 5 hours, 5 days, but it's not going to be awkward for 5 years. I should hope not. But if you spin something into this kind of outrage, then you could really ruin someone's life. And that brings us to the other thing I've been afraid of, is that we're going to become kind of draconian and 1984-ish about dating. We don't need people to be able to sign consent forms for every physical move you make. What kind of fun is that? Dating should be fun, and you are going to take risks. It doesn't mean that that everyone needs to be in a situation where they could get hurt, but risks are a part of this whole game, and sexual relations means something different to different individuals, and you may not even know what it means to yourself, but you're not going to find out until you test it out, or you make that discretion through experience. You can't have it all laid out in some kind of checklist of rules. And frankly, I think that's an insult to our own intelligence, that we need rules to spell out what the difference between rape, assault, and an awkward date that we just didn't like. I think we can be left to our own personal responsibility and personal judgment to be able to distinguish that. But some people may disagree. Some people may find more blurred lines as to what is consent and what is acceptable. As I said, I'm afraid that we're going to get to a point where men are going to be afraid that simply asking out a woman is assault. We're always saying, oh, it's the men who are committing this against women. It can happen both genders, all sexual orientations. I'll say, like, I've made locker room talk comments, and I've said stupid things that I've regretted, and you know what? People moved on, like, they forgot it 5 minutes later, or we laugh about it, and it's not, like, it doesn't have to be taken so seriously until it crosses over into unwanted physical action or repetitive actions that make someone feel uncomfortable. But on the subject of discomfort, I've been accused of focusing too much on millennial helicopter parenting and the importance of being more, the importance of not growing up in a bubble. I've been focusing a little too much on that, but I do think that so many people have been brought up to believe that they should never feel awkward or uncomfortable. But dating is awkward and uncomfortable unless you are happily married to the first person you've ever kissed. In which case, good for you, but you're in the minority here. So I'm all in favor of living and learning and forgiving and being awkward and laughing at it and embracing and moving on. And however, I'm also in favor of gaining the agency and the confidence to be able to say no and to understand that no is a final answer. And only when it crosses that line is it, and when it does cross that line, that's when you take it, it's sexual assault, it's a legal issue, and you should speak up, and this is the purpose of the Me Too movement. But to hijack this into, especially a man in this case, is wrong with whatever actions he does, damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, it's defeating the purpose, and it's giving more ammunition for the right wing in this case. So yeah, I know some people are going to disagree, but I'm willing to have a debate or discussion on this topic, but I do think it's something that should be put out there. Alright, so I'm going to be back later with more interviews, and keep watching the MoCo Millennial. Follow on Twitter. I'm also going to have a blog up, and finally the podcast. All that's going to come, and I think it's the start to a very productive 2018.